Good day, viewers, and welcome to today's Conversation podcast. Today we're privileged to host Noel Nkhoma. He holds an MBA degree in International Management and Economics from the Royal Holloway University of London in the UK. He also holds a postgraduate diploma in Business Administration from West London College. Let me just say a few things about Noel Nkhoma. In 2015, he was conferred as a fellow of the Association of the Business Executive, again in the UK. He has previously served as president of the Economic Association of Zambia. He's been a non-executive director on many prestigious, firms and companies such as Zesco, the Zambia Daily Mail. Even in sports, he's been a board member of the National Sports Council of Zambia. He's been instrumental in, reforms that have taken place in the banking and financial sector, being a banker of many years and a financial expert. He's also an entrepreneur and, he's very dominant in the financial and economic sector of our country. He's also a member of the Council of Zambia Institute of Banking and Financial Services. Mr. Noel Nkhoma, welcome to the Conversation podcast.
Thank you, Ambassador, and I'm glad to at least appear on this very prestigious platform. I've followed it, and I said to myself, when am I going to be given an opportunity? And I'm glad
you
that,
have it. You
yes,
have
yes.
it, and I think the nation would like to hear some of your views,
Yes.
your opinions, what founds these great opinions that you offer to the country. Just briefly tell us about Noel Nkhoma. Who is Noel Nkhoma?
Noel Nkhoma is a Zambian citizen, very proud for that matter, raised by civil servant, the late Julius Isaac Nkhoma, who served as a civil servant for many, many years until his retirement. I schooled at Northmead Primary School. From Northmead Primary School, I went to Kasisi Boys Primary School. I was expelled from Northmead because I fought over a woman or a girl at that time.
In what grade was that?
Yes, and that girl happens to be Grace Msimoko.
Wow, what a small world.
Yeah, so I later went to Kasisi Primary School. I completed my, that time, grade 7. Fortunate to have been admitted at the prestigious Munari Secondary School at the time. I hope it is still. Where I met great colleagues there. People like my former classmates, Judge Dominic Chinga, former classmate, colleague and friend, also the current Zambia Air Force Commander, General Oscar Nyoni. Yes. So we basically began to build our what you call a public life kind of training ground from Munari, because I was privileged to be president of the Munari Debating Society at the time. So I think it gave me an opportunity to be able to have a feel in terms of what public service is. From Munari, I worked briefly at the Cold Storage Board of Zambia. I worked in the abattoir, slaughtering cattle, deboning meat. And I realized that that was not my calling from school straight. Then that's when I found myself at responding to an advert in the newspaper where Finance Bank was inviting people to apply as clerks. So I joined Finance. I was privileged to be the first 10 to be selected to join Finance Bank as a clerk. And from there, I served Finance Bank for almost 25 years until the time I left.
As a clerk, how did you rise quickly? How did you find yourself in London at the sponsorship of the bank?
Yes. At that time, the competition was not as stiff as it is now, I should admit. But I think it was more of my ingenuity, innovations and customer-centric approach. Because I did not serve for more than 1 year as a clerk. Within 3 months of being employed, I was confirmed. Within 1 year or under 1 year, I was promoted to supervisor.
Okay.
Leaving the people that I joined with
were there for many
behind.
years.
Then the bank management began to see the potential in me. And 3 years after that, my general manager then thought that it was time for me to go and pursue further studies in London. That's how I went to the West London College. As soon as I completed, I passed with a merit. I was back in Lusaka, Zambia. Immediately I was promoted to the entry grade of management. That is after 5 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then, after 5 years of having been employed, then at the time that I entered first grade management, I was so good at marketing. So I was sent to a branch which had just been opened, the Longacres Corporate and Diplomatic Branch. I went there as an entry-level officer, reporting to an assistant branch manager. And the time I was there, the branch manager was a late Mike Tembo, a very brilliant banker who basically trained me what it took to become a manager and to become a top banker. Unfortunately, Mike died in a car accident when I was still an officer. So I was somehow elevated to assistant branch manager because the branch manager was now supposed to stand in as the assistant branch manager was supposed to stand in as a branch manager because Mike used to double as a branch manager but also as general manager for marketing and public relations. So I worked very closely with him. We managed to grow the bank balance sheet, deposit side very strongly, and we became one of the top performing branches. This did not go unnoticed. Then as I carried on with my work, building the branch, building the bank, I got a call, unexpected call from the secretary to the managing director, Mr. Wadud. Says, Mr. Nkhoma, the managing director wants to see you tomorrow at 8 hours. I did not know what it was, but as usual, when the managing director calls you, you begin to get shivers. Is there something that I've done wrong? Is there a customer who could have gone to report me? What did I do? So when I reported to Finance Bank head office, that time it was Channing House, just
opposite the post office.
Opposite
Shoprite.
Shoprite, yeah, but that time I think it was near stores.
Yes, near stores.
I reported there at 8 hours, so the managing director called me to the office and congratulated me.
Wow.
So he says, Noel, your boss, Mark Tembo, has passed on, but I want to make you general manager. I want you to prove to me that you can deliver. So I will appoint you as the marketing and public relations manager. So I skipped two grades.
Yes.
Yeah, that now answers the question that you raised. How did you rise so quickly? So you remember that I did not serve as a substantive assistant manager. I never served as a branch manager. I went straight to head office as a senior manager. So I never served really as a manager, so to speak. As a senior manager for marketing and public relations. And he said to me, your office will be on my floor. I'll be supervising you, you'll be reporting to me, and all I want is excellence. I worked in that role. Then hardly a year passed. My managing director was taking notice of what I was doing. We began now to build the bank branch network. So I was very instrumental.
I think that's when people begin to see you on TV.
Exactly, yeah. I was very instrumental.
Because now you are becoming the face of the bank.
Of the bank, yes. We began now to expand into, because what happened at that time was that most of these international banks were shying away from the rural areas. We're the first bank to open branches right from Monze right up to Livingstone. Monze, Choma, Pemba. We've had a branch in Pemba. Zimba. We had a branch in Zimba into Livingstone. We went on the northern circuit, opened in Serenge, opened in Pika, opened in Soka, opened in Chinsali,
Up to Nakonde.
right up to Nakonde, right? Then Western Province.
But what persuaded the bank?
What we did,
Like you were saying, I think there was the rural was being serviced by National Service and Credit Bank, which was
but it was not sufficient.
Well, it wasn't sufficient.
Yeah. So
yes.
what we did is that.
So how did you see that potential?
Because we realized that we could not compete with the Barclays, the Greenlays, the Stanchart along the line of rail, because they're the brand.
Yeah.
Right? They're the balance sheet, they're the brand. So what we said, let us go where there's no competition. That was the strategy. So we went to those areas where there was no. But these banks forgot that is what made Finance Bank what it was, because we were able to pull idle funds. Because you had farmers in there who had so much money, but nowhere to bank the money. So we're mobilizing deposits and channeling these deposits into head office for own lending.
Yeah.
Because those were stable deposits. They were sticky funds, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's how we began to build the brand of Finance Bank. Then hardly did I serve as marketing manager for a year, my managing director said to me, Noel, congratulations. I'm promoting you to Director of Marketing and Public Relations. At the age of 27.
Yeah.
Right? At the age of 27.
Yes.
I became a director, probably the youngest director in the entire banking sector. We're used to having directors who were 50, 40 plus and so on. So there was doubt that I could excel in that role. I served in that role just under 1 year. My managing director says, I want you now to work directly in my office. So it was a lateral move. I went as an executive assistant to the managing director. So in that role now, I was basically assisting the managing director run the entire bank. So there were issues that came to the managing director's office. I was the first person to see the correspondence. I would draft memos for him. I would draft letters, responses for him. I would give him advice.
Who was MD at the time?
Mr. Wadud.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would give him advice in terms of how I think he should deal with certain situations and so on and so forth. I was now in the core of the bank's executive management.
Yeah.
Then within a year again, the managing director says, Noel, I think I've groomed and backed you enough. I want you to take charge as director of operations.
Wow. That's the heart of banking.
A heart of banking. Now I had almost 50 branches under my control with a staff complement of about 600. So I was the actual director of operations, which also took responsibility for branch administration. So I was the one to appoint and disappoint branch managers and so on. So that gave me an opportunity to traverse this country. And I can tell you, Ambassador, that there's no corner of this country that I haven't
you haven't been to.
No, I now aggressively push the branch expansion to the extent that we now moved from branch expansion to what you call acquisition. We probably were the first bank in Zambia to acquire other bank branches. We acquired in one go almost 16 branches of Stanchart.
Yeah, because the other banks, I think, at the time, were literally abandoning retail banking.
So they found
they could make money elsewhere.
Exactly.
Making treasury bills and others and corporate banking.
They were seeing it as unprofitable.
Yes.
And the cost. But to us, we were an indigenous Zambian bank, so our heart was with the Zambian people.
Yeah.
Right? So all costs notwithstanding, as long as we were able to sustain our operations, that was sufficient. So we acquired all the Stanchart branches, which the 16 years. We acquired the Barclays branches, I think another maybe 15 or so. Then we acquired Zanaco. People may not know that we also acquired I think 2 branches from Zanaco. One of them was Chirundu. I remember very well. And I think one of them was in Southern Province, but I can't just place a finger to it. Along the way, we acquired it.
Yeah.
We also acquired Citibank Chingola. Yeah, we acquired Citibank Chingola, and I think Citibank, if I'm not mistaken, Kitwe. Right? So we were on a mission to grow a
The
true
largest network.
pan-African bank. I was working with the managing director, the pioneers to begin to expand finance bank outside the borders of Zambia. We went into Malawi. I was the one who was the lead in that project.
Okay.
I spent more time in Malawi than I was spending in Zambia. We opened one of the most successful commercial banking operations in Malawi. Right? In a space of under 2 years, we had branches in Mzuzu, we had branches
Other than
Lilongwe, in Blantyre, well, I think about 5 or 6 branches, right? Competing with those banks that we found. We now moved to Tanzania. At a point that the license was about to be issued in Tanzania, Meridian Bank collapsed. So I remember very well that time I was in Dar es Salaam, getting a call in my hotel room from the governor. Of the
1993-94.
Yes, the Bank of Tanzania. I remember it was Dr. Sidi, I can't remember the actual name, saying to me, I regret I was about to sign your license here, but
with the development of Meridian
one of
Bank.
your biggest banks in Zambia collapsing, we cannot do this. That's how we pulled back from Tanzania. But had it not been for that, our mission was to get into Tanzania, to get into Kenya, to get into Uganda. So there was a very clear strategy in terms of, first of all, a local expansion, then we begin a regional expansion. I served
What drove management thinking? In many cases, people think there's no money in our country. You were opening branches where people didn't see the money. You saw the money.
We saw the money, and we saw value in serving our people. But I think it's an issue of a nationalistic approach, because we wanted to identify with the people who are going to make us successful. That's the Zambian people. We innovated products which no other bank could match. And that's a fact. We were the pioneers in what you call, at that point, it could not have been referred to as electronic banking, but sweeping ZRA money. Wherever ZRA operated, we had a system where the money was swept into the central treasury within 48 hours.
Wow.
All right? ZRA money used to take weeks to
months.
get to the treasury. But we brought in a product which basically allowed ZRA money. If today you pay your customs at Chirundu, within 48 hours, that money is in the...
Reports into central bank.
Into what you call Control 99. So, over and above that, we are the first bank to have brought in a product which basically supported government operations in any part of Zambia where they are, in terms of payment of salaries, in terms of payment of...
Because you're present where the other banks were not available.
Payment of to farmers, and so on and so forth. So government began to see a real partner in finance bank. That is why people sometimes used to accuse us of being favored by government. It's not being favored. It's what we were able to offer. I served in that role for just under 1.5 years. Then the managing director, unfortunately, at that point, I asked for time to go and pursue my postgraduate degree. I got admission at one of the prestigious universities in London, the Royal Holloway, University of London, where I studied my master's, MBA, in international management and global economics.
Okay.
So to me, I was trying to get what you call an understanding in terms of how global business operates, transnational operations and so on. Because to me, my thinking was that finance bank should go beyond
the borders of Zambia.
Borders of Zambia,
and
regional
you should be
expansion and so on. So it was I completed within 2 years and got back into Zambia. And when I reported back, I only served, I was moved back to become director of marketing and public relations. Then the MD passed on, Mr. Wadud.
Yes.
Shortly after I had returned. So another managing director came. So I worked under another 1 or 2 managing directors within 3 years. I was appointed as the first Zambian to become executive director, which is just a level below the managing director. So I served in that role until the time that I left the bank. Unceremoniously left the bank. I think, Ambassador, you know my story.
Around 2010, I think.
Yes, 2010. Well, I, together with other colleagues, were fired, right? And the bank, the government of the Republic of Zambia, through the Bank of Zambia, invoking the Banking and Financial Services Act, took possession of the bank. And that is how I left the mainstream banking and to set up my own outfit, Better Now Finance Company, which ran for 10 years, but I left, I think, after 7 years for various reasons. One is because the new shareholders and I could not agree in terms of my vision. As a vision carrier, our visions, what they wanted and what I had in mind clashed.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Because to me, I wanted to create a commercial bank. But
or you wanted it to migrate from
yes,
microfinancial institution
into a commercial bank.
Yeah.
That was my dream.
Because you are a banker at heart.
Exactly. I admired what the late Mr. Friday Njovu was able to show us.
Former managing director for Zanaco and founder of
Investors. Right. To me, I admired him a lot, and I should say that he was one of those who encouraged me. Because when I started Better Now Finance Company, I had no money. Right?
It was an idea you had.
I had, but I didn't have the money. The first seed money came from the late Mike Mulongoti. May his soul rest in peace. And after that, I went to get a line of credit from Investors. And I began to build a brand and build an institution, which, mind you, it came to do great things. We financed many Zambian entrepreneurs.
Yes.
You know, I'm so proud to see a company which we lifted from 3 buses to 15 buses, huge Marco Polo buses, Zambia Malawi, is still standing up to now. A company called Enron Oil, we helped them build 3 gas stations, Rufunsa, and I think one in Kaputa or whatever it is, where there were no gas stations. So there were so many great things that we did. And unfortunately, we couldn't agree. So in 2018, I left as CEO on a mutual agreement. Then in 2020, and then they persuaded me to stay on, to serve as board chairman until such a time that they were able to appoint another board chairman. So I left about 2021 and went into politics.
You were president of Economic Association of Zambia, and I think you gave good guidance during your tenure. Yes. But I would remember that politicians, when you give them a stinging attack, expose the weaknesses of the economy, they'll then personally attack you. Then after all, he's just a banker. He's not an economist.
Yes.
Speak to that.
Yes, I remember very well that when I was elected as Economic Association of Zambia president, that was a Friday. On Monday, I got a congratulatory letter from President Rupia Banda, may his soul rest in peace. And in that letter, said he was happy to work with me to foster economic growth. And I should state here that the relationship was cordial, but of course there were issues where sometimes we had to come out very strongly. And one of the issues that I remember very well, which could have tickled the powers that be, but it was well received, was that we raised concern as Economic Association of Zambia to say the president was taking too many international trips, which were not benefiting Zambia. And I said the president should act like a wholesaler. When you go into those foreign trips, carry a Zambian delegation of the private sector businesses. Because ultimately, Ambassador, government cannot satisfy the job demands of our people. It can only be the private sector because government has got limitations. The resource envelope is limited. So we came out very strongly against President Rupia Banda as appetite for foreign travel, which we, in our view, believed it was not benefiting the country. Then he immediately pronounced himself. He says, I'm being condemned, that I'm not involving the business community. And what I said, and I remember that I said, as a president, you are a wholesaler. You just open the wholesale door, let the retailers come in and pick from the shop what they want to pick, and the benefit. You don't have to pay for them; they'll pay for themselves. But they want you, who has got a key for the wholesale, to open for them, open doors for them. That happened very well. That is how you were able to see President Rupia Banda go to Nigeria with a team of businessmen.
Okay.
We had, I remember there was Caleb Mulenga, who was able to forge a partnership with the Access Group to come and open Access Bank here. And how did it happen? Because Caleb understood what he wanted.
In fact, that business trip was so fruitful because we had various Nigerian banks.
Dangote.
Various businesses. UBA, Dangote, and Access Bank.
Because the president had a day reserved for a business forum. That's how you saw the appetite.
And the partners were already
the
Zambian delegation.
Even Dangote was supposed to have a Zambian partner. But being politics what it is,
and his model of business,
I think there was an agreement, I think, in Nigeria that there was going to be Zambian partners in Dangote. But I think the politicians frustrated that process. So all I'm saying is that we made our contribution, and we still believed that the success of the government at the time to be able to transition Zambia to a middle-income country, push GDP growth to over 7%, and create one of the most attractive and vibrant financial sector. Extremely affordable credit. Because mind you, that is a time that many Zambians bought vehicles because the exchange rate was favorable and the interest rate was favorable. So a teacher could afford to walk into a bank and borrow.
And buy a car.
So we think that we're part of that architecture, which I think worked very well. And I enjoyed my time as president of the Economic Association of Zambia. And we had so much support from the IMF, from the World Bank, and other cooperating partners. Because mind you, AZ...
Are you an economist?
No, I'm not a mainstream economist. Yes. I have read economics. Yes. But not a mainstream economist.
Because I noticed even your MBA, you are part of it, global economics.
Yes.
So you are an economist.
Yes. So I have passion also for economics because I read widely and I always want economics that works. Whatever I mean economics, there's a difference between theory, but practical economics.
Practice,
Practical economics is that which uplifts people, right? From abject poverty to basic poverty, from basic poverty to what you call the middle income strata. So what we should be doing should be basically advocating for economics that impacts on the well-being, the socio-economic well-being of our people. No,
some of the best finance ministers were not even economists. I should...
Penza.
Ronald
Penza. Because what we are talking about now, liberalization, it had to take courage from a chartered accountant, a man who never worked in the mainstream government, coming from private practice, to be able to transform this economy.
Felix Mtati.
Absolutely, chartered accountant.
Another accountant,
as well. But they have excelled in their respective roles. And we think that without ignoring Katera Kalumba, a
public health expert.
Edith Nawakwi, yes, energy economics, quite all right. But what we are saying is that what counts is leadership, right? You do not have to be an economist to be able to manage a successful economic activity of the country. All it requires.
What makes an organization like Economic Association of Zambia be respected by government? In your case, you criticize the numerous trips by the president.
Yes.
And the president listened to you.
Absolutely.
And in his next trip, he began to involve the private sector.
Mind you,
they become to be investment and business driven.
Yes, and it was not only Nigeria. Mind you, the president later on went to Brazil. He took business people on that delegation to the extent that we had President Lula visiting Zambia again with a horde of businessmen. The president went to Turkey. You remember how the Turkish interest in Zambia grew. There were businessmen who went.
That Brazil trip ended up with us having an investment in the mining sector.
In the mining sector, exactly. So we have all these, what you call gravitas in terms of politics being able to facilitate businesses. So to us, I think that is how it should be. Now, what makes an association respected? First of all, it's objectivity.
Okay.
Right? In whatever you criticize, you should have capacity to defend your position. Right? If I get a response from government which basically begins to attack me, I should not waver. I should be able to stand by that and still propagate my position. Because ultimately, what used to happen, mind you, at the time I served as president, my national secretary was the current Zambia's ambassador to Washington, Chiwamba Kanyama.
Yes, yes.
He served as my national secretary, right? So all I'm saying is that the caliber of the EXCO, right? I had in my committee the first, not the first rather, a former director of economics at Bank of Zambia in the counter era, Bob Libentho. You know, Bob is a highly respected economist. He's served Bank of Zambia as director of economics. He served the World Bank. And he still consults for the World Bank at the IMF. He was in my executive committee. I had people like the current president, Isaac Ngoma, in my committee. I had also people like Pamela. Pamela is the CEO for the Miriam Challenge account from Ministry of Finance. So it was a credibility of the EXCO, which I was leading, which basically made us to be respected because they knew these are people who meant well for the country.
And they saw that your criticism was not malicious.
It was not malicious.
Political.
It was not politics.
It was genuine.
It was genuine. We refused to be apolitical. That is why when the World Bank comes for its mission to Zambia, we are one of the first point of call because we gave unbiased opinions in terms of economic sentiments and et cetera, et cetera. So we end our reputation to the extent that we're even being funded by DFID, SNV, and so on and so forth.
You attracted corporate partners to
and mind you, during my time, we used to give what you call a budget, parliamentary. We had a parliamentary budget program where we used to take MPs through interpreting the budget.
Yeah, because the budget is technical.
It's technical.
And our MPs are just from ordinary leadership across the country.
So we had expertise within the association who we had engaged. One of them is Honorable Bob Chichinga, who worked with us for many years, I think 2-3 years, as a consultant on the budget project with the National Assembly. So we had an MOU.
He himself was a previous parliamentarian.
Exactly. So there are so many successes that we scored. We formed chapters at CBU, we formed chapters at University of Zambia, where we're getting these students to begin to appreciate what you call real economics, so to speak.
Now, because you are very involved with the Nchwala ceremony, you know, I'm persuaded to joke with you about it, but I'll spare you. So therefore, to our dear viewers, we may not take so much time to go into depth of the issues that, Noel would like to share with you. But we'll go to, I think, the fundamental ones. Absolutely. Let's quickly rush to our economy. Let's begin to trace it and tie it to our leaders. Okay. What have we done right? What have we done wrong? Let's start with Dr. Kaunda, 1964. He, I think, takes over an economy that's thriving in relation to our economy. Our currency is very, very strong, even better than the dollar, and very stable. We have foreign reserves. Our economy, I think, is far better than even countries like Singapore, South Korea, and even GDP per capita, we're even better than China. Just walk us through your thoughts about Dr. Kaunda's leadership, the leadership in the economy. Where did we get it right? Where did we get it wrong? How did we end up at 1990 with a collapsed economy and a highly indebted country?
Dr. Kaunda, in my view, built the foundation that still, up to now, we still stand on, right? And no doubt, Dr. Kaunda knew what he wanted for Zambia. He was very passionate about indigenization. He was very passionate about nationalization. Now, let me just give you an example of the many successes that I think Dr. Kaunda scored. Dr. Kaunda's cabinet were men and women of a very humble education. You could probably count how many degrees there, maybe one or two.
Yeah.
Right? But these are the people who knew what the true meaning of independence was. So they said to themselves, we want to build an economy which is dependent on the Zambian people in terms of skill, in terms of labor and knowledge. We are going to build an economy which will be driven, number one, by the Zambian people themselves. And the Zambian people as the center in terms of appropriation of benefits. Right? Now, what was a success? For example, we had industries. The government was the largest creator of employment. So you probably came behind me by a few years, but I think even the time that you were leaving secondary, there was no short of job opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, the population was small, but the size of the economy at that time was able to achieve what you call full employment, or closer to full employment. There's no economy which has got full employment.
Yeah.
So near full employment. Now, how did we get it right? We got it right because Dr. Kaunda pushed very strongly the issue of industrialization and the genuine indigenous empowerment. He created entities like the DBZ, the Lima Bank, right? Then there was also the small-scale CIDO, Industries Development Organization.
Just briefly, why is that important? For example, he recognized that you needed Development Bank of Zambia. He recognized that we needed a bank for the agriculture sector. Then he recognized, like SIDO,
absolutely,
where you harness employment and these
for the SMEs.
For the SMEs.
Yeah. Because he wanted to see them grow. Dr. Kaunda recognized that as long, he recognized first of all, that commercial banks were not going to support.
They will pursue commercial interests.
They will not support his agenda, which was a transformational agenda. So what he did, that is why, Ambassador, I want you to hear me right. Why do you think Dr. Kaunda did not want the Development Bank of Zambia to be under the Bank of Zambia?
Yeah.
It was created under an act of parliament.
Separate,
because he wanted an autonomous institution, but which was going to be responsive to the government
development
agenda, right? Without being constrained with the Bank of Zambia regulatory regime. It had to give medium to long-term capital, right? And mind you, it's a development Bank of Zambia, which built the copper belt industrial base to be able to support the mines. Okay, so what we were saying basically is that these institutions, I talked about DBZ, basically how many Zambian indigenous powerhouses in farming were able to create. Lima Bank itself, how it was able to uplift our peasant farmers to bring them to middle, what you call earners in farming. Then we also have to acknowledge that Dr. Kaunda recognized that yes, we are building industrialization through DBZ. We are building a cadre of indigenous Zambian peasant and commercial farmers through Lima Bank. Let us now focus on those entrepreneurs who would want to venture into small and medium enterprises. He created SIDO, a small industries development organization. And if I'm not mistaken, Bitashtar, I think, once worked there as a CEO. So all this basically spoke to what you call a multifaceted kind of approach to building an economy.
In fact, by 1990, other than the issues of debt and other than the shortages that has affected the economy, and the economy has now slowed down and is at the verge of collapse. By 1990, we were a highly urbanized country in Southern Africa.
Absolutely.
I think we we had one of the biggest formal sector employment. We literally had an industrialized economy with over 300 industrial and manufacturing entities. Where did we have it wrong, especially with the state-owned enterprises?
Well, I think...
Where did the inefficiencies come in? Where did they now affect the treasury, where now they were beginning to depend on the treasury for operations?
Well, I think to some extent it was an element of government's appetite to spend more than the resource envelope. And mind you, we used to support a lot of liberation movements. And there was an expanded kind of civil service cadre where we did not want to give space to the private sector to thrive. So it was a commandist economy where government was the biggest employer and the biggest spender at the same time, but against a dwindling resource envelope. So that created the budget deficits that began to manifest and grow. So what happens when you are spending more than what you are earning, you begin now to compromise some of the assets. And one of the things that you will recall, Ambassador, we are not reinvesting in terms of recapitalizing the mines. We were sucking the mines dry. So because it was government, it was convenient because they were not accountable to anyone except themselves. But had it been the private sector, that would not probably have been allowed to do. So it is that the elephant in the room was this government institution, which basically had no checks and balances. That's what it was. But mind you, let me also just hasten to say one thing here. I think we have not exhausted the issue of the Zambian indigenization. Right? Because look at how we set up this is what you call farming blocks and began to promote very strongly the issue of smallholder schemes. Right? And when we talk about the Development Bank of Zambia, it was so instrumental. Right? It was so. You have got people who come to me and tell me, do you know that I'm so sad that this institution is no more? Because I built my plantation, right?
From a loan from
DBZ. State Council of Vincent Malam. One of the biggest outgrower in sugar in Mazabuka there. It was DBZ, right? You had the Mpongwe. That Mpongwe project, it was DBZ, right? So what we are saying, if we contrast it with now, we don't have those facilities anymore, right? Doesn't it sadden you, Ambassador, that in the midst of constrained credit, and even that constrained credit, it is so expensive. You have got banks posting super profits, 2 billion in a struggling economy. How do you reconcile that?
Well, they simply do the lazy way. Exactly. They just go to the treasury and
bills.
Buy treasury bills or government bonds.
That is exactly what I was driving at. We do not have innovation around the architecture, around the financial sector, to be able to promote you and me, to be able to...
Or to compel the banks to take the money to where it is needed in the economy.
That is why you have the lowest loans to deposit ratio in the entire Southern Africa at about 33-38%. Right? In other countries, it's the other way around. You have got loans of 80%, right? In a deposit, in the deposit structure. But here the loans are only 33%. So where is the other 77%? It's so in safe havens where they don't have to do any, they don't have
economic
to stress.
Activity,
They know that government will not default and park the money there. So that is a problem.
We come to Dr. Chiluba. He finds an economy that's bleeding. You have shortages. You have high cost of living. And you have this debt overhang, a debt burden of $7 billion. And Dr. Chiluba does a fundamental policy shift, first from socialist to capitalist, liberal. He liberalizes the economy and he privatizes. Now, the privatization is a controversial subject because in the end, our industries can never be traced. We are deindustrialized. Speak to the era of Dr. Chiluba, the benefits he brought and the weaknesses that you think could have been done better.
Well, I think the biggest weakness, I'll start with the weakness, we rushed the privatization.
It was rushed.
It was rushed without much thought being given to it. And I think as a result of the pressure that we're getting from these Bretton Woods institutions, who basically, I think, I was not in government. I'm just assuming that it was been an issue of if you want support, you have to play by our rules.
Yeah.
Right? We rushed the privatization program. All with a view to please those who controlled the purse. Now, there are many things that Dr. Chiluba did well. And one of them, to me, is the issue of liberalizing the economy. Right? But that liberalization also came with pain. Right? Because the weak went under. Right? Because there was no protection.
Yeah.
Because, mind you, came from a commandist, socialist economy where there was protection. Now, when you liberalize, it means that those weak companies in the architect of the economy
Who collapsed.
will collapse. They won't be able to face the competition pressure which comes with it. So,
And there were no safety nets.
there was no safety nets. Yes, that is the word. So what we basically can say is that, yes, it was necessary to liberalize, but it would have been a managed liberalization.
But it is during Dr. Chiluba's period that we see a blooming banking and financial sector, where we had just few traditional banks. All of a sudden, banks were opening up, and you just told us of your history, where you expanded your bank, because I think you found a good environment even to expand your own networks.
Yes. Liberalization has got what you call its own benefits, but again, it has got its own the downside. So what I'm saying is that indeed, with the expansion of the financial sector, we had created so much opportunities for the Zambian people, but opportunities only limited to short-term credit, which is still the case up to now. It hasn't changed because commercial banks by nature are short-term lenders. They're not long-term lenders, right?
No.
So that is why every country has got a DFI, right? So it came with a lot of benefits, quite all right.
When you speak to our people at DFI, they will not understand what you mean.
It's a development finance institution.
Like DBZ.
Like DBZ, yes.
Yeah.
So I think we will remember Dr. Chiluba as a person who was so courageous. With at the time, Honorable Ronald Penza as minister, who took a risk which no one at that time could believe or imagine that it would work.
Yeah.
You remember the time of the exchange rate when Minister Penza just came and announced to Parliament that from now onwards we are dropping
Exchange
foreign
controls.
exchange control regulations. It's a liberalized regime.
And that the kwacha will float
The kwacha will
to its
float.
value.
And everyone believed that there will be a capital flight.
Yeah.
So people tested it. They took out $1, $2, $3 million. When they saw that nothing was happening after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, they brought it back. That is what has sustained us up to now. So I think, to me, those are the two areas that I think I'll remember Dr. Chiluba. We rushed the privatization. We also rushed the liberalization, would have put in safety nets, and also would have been probably allowed the process of what you call a gradual privatization. The timeline I think that we gave to ourselves, I think in agreement with our Bretton Woods, was a 5-year window. We had to finish the program. I think that
was too fast.
That was too fast. You know, because if you recall very well, Ambassador, Zimco at one time made it to Forbes 100.
Yeah. It was one of the biggest 500 companies in the world.
In the world.
Yes.
It was in Forbes, it made it to the Forbes 100. Now, how do you melt that kind of asset in a 5-year window?
Yeah.
It's not possible. So I think those are some of the lessons that I pick from there.
Yeah. We come to President Mwamba. He comes through a narrow win of an election. I think he has challenges of legitimacy, but there's something big that occurs under his government. I think he started with one minister of finance, I think Emmanuel Mwamba. There were issues. Then he found Magande, and under Magande, we achieve two major things. First, the debt overhang of $7 billion is written off to almost a negligible $500 million. And there's something that Dr. Magande did, because after studying and liberalizing the economy, selling the mines, he realized we're not getting benefits from the mines. There were those mineral agreements that were preventing us from doing any policy that would ensure that we earn from the mines. He abolishes that temporarily, and he puts in windfall tax. Just speak to those issues under President Mwamba.
Well, one thing that President Mwamba, I think, showed very strong zeal and performance was he was taking over from a company, from a country which was doing well all this time until the last 3 or 4 years of Chiluba's presidency. You know, it was riddled with corruption stigma. Now, what he recognized, which he recognized very quickly, was for me to win the confidence of the international community. I have to come strong on corruption.
Yeah.
Let me deal with this stigma, regardless of the collateral damage that it came with. He was able to successfully, more or less, assert himself that he meant well and he genuinely wanted to fight corruption. That made his what you call a debt forgiveness and debt write-off agenda very easy, because the international community believed that they were dealing with a honest and an incorruptible leader. That corruption fight was the key to President
unlock
Mwamba,
everything else,
to make it easier not to engage. He says, I'm coming with clean hands. And all what I ask is, let's hold hands and help me to prevent this country from sliding into a failed state. So the support for President Mwamba from the international community was so overwhelming. And how did you see that? After Dr. Kaunda, Mwamba was the only president who had breakfast with the British Prime Minister. You remember Gordon Brown? He was well received at number 10. En route to the, I think he was going for the UNGA. But that was a seal of endorsement. What that did was to show or demonstrate or send a clear signal and message to the cooperating partners at the international community to say, us as the United Kingdom, we have endorsed this man. So coming to the issues around the governance style of President Mwamba, very solid governance. He was a hands-on president. He literally wanted to roll his sleeves and get involved. He is a president who you discuss with him at 9 hours, at 10 hours you see action, right? Because I do recall very well that when we were building the Zambezi Portland Cement, he said to himself, the day that you are now ready to fire the machine, I will be in Ndola. And he was in Ndola.
To officially open it.
So this is a president who, coming in with a weak and controversial win, he quickly was able to reposition himself as a messiah of the Zambian people. And he began to appoint the right people in the government positions, the right Minister of Finance, the right economic advisor, and etc., the right cabinet ministers who were able to share in his vision to be able to transform and make Zambia a corrupt-free country. So all those benefits that we saw around President Manasa's presidency, it was all triggered by his zeal and fight against corruption.
Yeah.
Because mind you, corruption has got benefits if you can genuinely fight it.
We come to President Rupia Banda. I think he's the biggest beneficiary of the economic decisions of both President Frederick Chiluba and Levi Mwanawasa. We've seen economic growth we've never seen in this country under President Rupia Banda. He even now gathers enough reserves. I think the reserves were $4.5 billion.
Absolutely.
And the economy is at its stablest, I think, in almost 30, 40 years. Although he loses an election, which is a paradox when the economy is doing well, just speak to the president of Rupia Banda.
Yes, I think President Rupia Banda came in on a very strong footing. Very strong footing in the sense that President Manasseh built a very strong foundation, right? And at the point that it was just to fire the last cylinder of the 8 cylinders, President Manasseh had fired the 7 cylinders. All that President Banda did was to switch on the last cylinder.
Yeah.
And there you go, reserves 4 billion plus. There you go, GDP almost touching 8%, right? Boom, a middle class country. So it was basically, what he did was just to stand still and not disturb anything. And things were all falling in place, right? One thing that you can give credit to President Banda was that he was like a magnet. Yeah. Many people were so attracted to him, and they believed that he was a business-friendly president. And that is why you saw President Banda was so comfortable in the presence of businessmen. Because he's also previously, other than diplomat, he's also a businessman. A businessman.
Yeah.
So President Banda always used to be so happy in the presence of businessmen. That alone made the business community so comfortable to the point that how do we pay back this show of genuine business-friendly environment? Let us scale up our investments.
Yeah.
You remember that it was during his time that we had a competitor to Coca-Cola. All this time it was Zambia bottlers, Coca-Cola. We had the beverages, what do you call this?
Pepsi. Yeah.
A Pepsi came in, right? We had the other competitors coming in like Dangote, for example.
For the cement and
Access Bank, because he would rather spend time not talking politics, but talking business. So that really helped him a lot. And like what I said, he did not disturb what President Manasseh left. That he came in.
Presidents have a habit
of disrupting. In fact, that's the word, disruptive. It never came in with a disruptive tendency. He simply said, I will allow the systems that have been put in place to go. He didn't make many changes to his cabinet. I think you noticed.
Yeah.
He didn't make many changes. He only shifted the Minister of Finance from the economic advisor to the Minister of Finance. Why? He wanted continuity. So he should be actually remembered for the continuity strategy that he brought to government. And he said, I will not dwell on the bad things that happened in the past. I want to build on the good things. And that's what he did. And that's why people sometimes never used to understand him. He was so comfortable with the people he worked around with. That is why every opportunity to travel out, he would travel. Every opportunity to go to his village, he would go. Because he knew that he was only an enabler. The work was being done by ministers. Yes.
We come to President Michael Sata. I think he's remembered for his infrastructural drive. We've never had infrastructure development. In the last 50 years, it had stagnated. And I think the one who switches on the gear for infrastructure is Michael Sata. In his abrasive, pushy nature, I think he'll be remembered for that. What are your thoughts around Michael Sata and the economic policy?
I think President Sata was very strong advocate for infrastructure, modern infrastructure for that matter. And we remember, even as governor, with a small resource envelope, he was able to put up the second flyover bridge.
Yeah, the three flyover bridges.
Flyover bridge.
The
The Zesco flyover bridge. That was his project. You remember that I think we used to only have one in Lusaka, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
The one at Kamwala there. Then he came and put up the
one at the post office.
The one at the
Post
it
office
was
and the one
Kamwala.
on
Then he put up
Kafue.
the post office and the Zesco, right, to open up movement of mobility in Lusaka. But most importantly, also, this is a man who brought the concept of an intercity bus terminus. We never had that, right?
When he was governor, yes.
With a small resource envelope again, he was able to produce what has stood and continues to save us up to now. The population at that time was maybe 10 million, right? If not less. The population now is 20 million, but it has still continued to save us.
Yeah.
So he came in on the single motto of "Give me Zambia, therefore Jipyange." You know, Nibemba.
Yes.
I want to sweep this country, right?
Yeah.
I want to sweep this country, and he lived by his word. Massive infrastructure projects, never seen, probably, until after probably independence. Right? Opened up the country. He had all these gigantic projects. And to the extent that people used to believe that he was operating not as a head of state in a democracy, but as a commando whose orders have to be followed. Because President Sarah did not want to take no for an answer. All he pronounced must happen. So that's what now comes to the issue of, the link. Is it 400?
Zambia,
and
Zambia,
so on and so forth.
8,000 and 400.
Exactly. So to a greater extent, I think, in the short time that he lived, he succeeded. Right? And he also did not want to disrupt so much of what the previous government did. Yes, people moved, people switched, people were let go. But overall, I think he was more of a doer than anything else.
Yeah. Edgar Lungu is like Rupiah Banda. He finds something working on infrastructure. He also doesn't disrupt what his predecessor built. He's come there suddenly after the death of President Michael Sata, like Rupiah Banda did after the death of President Mwanawasa. What are your thoughts about President Lungu and his economic approach to our country?
Well, one thing that I can attribute to President Lungu, yes, he sustained the infrastructure project, quite all right, to a large degree. But I think that President Lungu was let down by the people who are supposed to support his vision for Zambia. People may argue that he had no vision, but of course, there's no leader who doesn't have a plan.
He had the Michael Sata vision,
Exactly,
actually.
whatever it is. Now, to me, I think at the point that the economy began to overheat, right, people were sounding or ringing bells,
alarm bells over there.
alarm bells that things are, we are now at the cliff, we're about to tip. He didn't take heed of that. To me, I think the people in his cabinet should have said, yes, Mr. President, we want to do this, but we can't. So I think that is one of the biggest failures of President Lungu's administration, because of the fact that they literally dropped the ball in as far as the economy is concerned, right? Because, you see, any economy to be good is the pronouncements of the head of state.
Yeah.
The head of state's pronouncements around the economy is what makes the economy, because it drives sentiments around the economy, and also it sends a message in terms of the direction. So I think President Lungu did not pronounce himself very strongly on the economy. So we see his more concentration on politics, sustainability of politics, than the economy's well-being. So Yes, we benefited from the infrastructure that came with it, but it came with a very huge cost and price, which we are still paying up to today. You know, the huge debt, which up to now the country is still struggling to restructure it.
Yeah. We come to your dear brother, President Hakainde Hichilema.
Oh, yes.
I think he takes over an economy. There's an issue of debt. We have defaulted since December 2020. I think he pronounces himself that the issue of debt and debt restructure becomes paramount. There are issues with the economy that he needs to resolve. Just speak to the presidency of President Hakainde Hichilema.
Yeah, indeed. I first of all want to say something, Emmanuel, right, which I think is extremely fundamental. You see, Emmanuel, this is a house we are in, right? It's an office. If you are the tenant in this house, and I decide to make an offer to the owner of this house, I want to buy this house, right? I'm offering you so much money, and you are a sitting tenant in this house. To respect my privacy, I will not allow you to come into the house and view. For example, you won't come into my bedroom or my children's bedroom. I may allow you to go up to the living room, the kitchen, the corridor, veranda. You leave. But you form an opinion.
On what you have seen.
On what you have seen. And on the basis of that, you're able to make an offer. Now, I liken this to the current situation of my party, the UPND, right? And I just want to put into context the issues which the president has been criticized one time too many. He made promises around fuel. He made promises around the exchange rate and so on. I think this is where it's going to. Now, one of the things that I think we did not do well as a party was our aspirations overwhelmed us, right? Our aspirations to be able to deliver a better Zambia to the Zambian people overwhelmed us. And why do I say overwhelmed us? You know, when now, Emmanuel, you buy this house. I buy this house, right? I make an offer, I buy this house. I now come and take possession. You have left, right? I'm now able to enter. This room I didn't enter. Let me see the state of the room. You find that there's no sitting board, right? You go into the other room, you find there are no tiles. You now get to grasp the extent of the house. Where you thought that you would just be able to move your furniture in and stay, it doesn't happen like that. Because you say, I have to renovate this, I have to fix this, I have to fix that, I have to fix. Then, what you had thought was something easy is not the case. What I'm saying, Emmanuel, is that at the point that we assumed government, within the first 1 year, we should have known the true state of the economy, right? When we were outside there, because we did not have the benefit to view and understand and appreciate the state or the real state of the infrastructure, we should have now come back to the Zambian people and said, when we're outside there, we had no access to the information that we now have. Because now we have entered the house, we have entered the bedrooms, we know the true state of this house called Zambia. Now we are coming back to tell you that what we thought we knew, we didn't know. And yes, would want to deal with the issue of the price of fuel. But because of what we now know, because we're inside, we are not able to deliver on that promise. Because we know now the state of the pace, we are not able to give you free education in our first year in government. So to me, we have allowed it. That is why people keep on raising it. You promised this, you promised that.
People suggest, no, that an apology would have done.
But I don't think it should be an apology. It should have been an admission, Ambassador, that what we thought we knew, we did not know the exact extent of the damage which we're now having to confront with. So what we promised to deliver in 2-3 years, Give us more time because this will take 2 years to fix. This will take 3 years to fix. So all it required was an admission that you are now equipped with a better understanding and a better knowledge of what you are grappling with.
So what do you think President Hakainde Hichilema should do? I say this because really, I'll use the word of the Bank of Zambia governor, Danny Kalialia, who says the economy is overheating. And you can agree with him. Other than our social crises we have, I think we do have a real economic crisis. And I think one of the solutions of debt reschedule, which seemed that it would be done maybe within a period of 6 months to 1 year, appears to have an indefinite debt because the factors are outside Zambia, outside the president. He's not the one to say, let's have a debt reschedule and it will happen because there are other technical players and too many moving parts. What do you think should be done?
Well, I think let me also state, because I'm now, I think I've got the benefit to work with the administration. I've got the benefit to understand the thinking of the president, the thinking of the Minister of Finance, the thinking of the economic team, the governor, and so on, where they want to take this country. I remain exceedingly confident.
You're confident?
Oh, yes, I'm confident. I've got unmatched confidence in the presidency to be able to resolve Zambia's economic situation. I would not want to call it a crisis. I think it was a crisis up to maybe 2022 when UPND just assumed government 2021, 2022. Right now, I think all these what you call levers are more or less under control, right? We are now able to deal with the economy with a very strong sense of predictability and stability. And I know that, yes, it has taken a painful 3 years to try and resolve the economic issues. But again, as I say, we underestimated the work that was required to go in. Now, the question is, can President Hakainde Hichilema be able to deliver a better Zambia come 2026 when he will be up for elections? The answer is yes. I think it will happen. There's hope on the horizon because of the work that has already gone into resolving and fixing the economy.
Yeah.
Now, when you come...
I will need to give you a second bite to this sharing. The state of the economy requires you and I to debate and debate vociferously. Yeah. But I recognize at the time that we granted one another may not be adequate. We saw you leave your professional and business life and attempt to go into mainstream politics. I think you threw your heart back home.
Absolutely.
In Lwangeni.
Yes.
Are you now determined to be a politician? Are you leaving the rank of this professional cloth you've had for these last 30 years?
Yes, I still would like to serve my people through an elective position as a member of parliament. I still believe I've got so much to offer to my people and the people of Zambia in general. So at this stage, I can say yes. I still desire to enter parliament one day.
You are right inside this government. And 3-4 days ago, I published something, an anonymous letter from DBZ workers. They were very worried about the future state of DBZ. I think their contracts were terminated. But having sat with you and the passion you have for DBZ, what do you think should be done? Because clearly, to drive the economy of this country, you need deliberate state institutions such as DBZ to drive the process. This is not a matter you can leave just to the private sector.
You are very right, Ambassador. DBZ is the growth engine of the Zambian economy, more especially when it comes to indigenization of the economy.
Yeah.
Mind you, Ambassador, don't you feel ashamed that we have got an asset like Mopani? Yeah. We have got an asset like KCM. There's no single Zambian who has ever stood up and said, here's my check, I want to be a shareholder. Doesn't that make you
That
feel
concerns
so
us.
sad? Because that is a lifeline. We are now saying the most valuable asset to the country, we have bequeathed it into foreign hands.
Yeah.
We have no control. How are you going to control the exchange rate when you don't have control of that which controls the exchange rate? The exchange rate informs the cost of your fuel.
Yeah.
The exchange rate informs the cost of your bag of mini-meal. The cost of living. Because we are a mono-import dependent
Country.
economy. Right? So if you cannot control that,
You can control the
what
economy.
are you going to control? You are at the mercy of the foreign players. We have been abandoned before.
Yeah.
Look at how Glencore left.
Yeah.
They literally switched off the mine.
Yes.
And the next thing we're hearing, the CEO was on the plane. They had to stop him. What happened to Anglo?
In
I don't forget what
2002.
they abandoned KCM. Right? So we should be ashamed of ourselves as a people.
Yeah.
That day in, day out, we're crying to basically something that is beyond our control. We have failed to be nationalistic in the true meaning of it. I'll give you an example. Friday Jove, may his soul rest in peace, tried to create an indigenous Zambian institution. How many of us Zambians went to support it? Would rather go to APSA, would rather go to Stanchart, because we don't believe in ourselves.
Even in soccer, we watch foreign games
Exactly.
than we watch our local games.
Our local games. So until there's a mindset change of practicing genuine patriotism to this country, look at the Nigerians. When you go to Nigeria, ambassador, Stanchart is nothing.
Yeah.
Citibank is nothing.
Yeah.
Because the Nigerians believe in their own ownership. Aren't you shocked that now you have got these banks opening operations in countries where you could never imagine an African bank?
Yeah.
In Paris, in New York, in London. Right?
Indigenous African
Indigenous.
bank.
So we should be saying to ourselves,
Why do we fight ourselves? If I see Noel is succeeding, in fact, you will not be brought down by foreigners. It will be by ourselves.
exactly. Yeah.
There is a mindset crisis
Yes,
with ourselves.
it's an issue which basically has to do with a deficit in patriotism. It's a deficit in patriotism. To the extent that you believe that it is better off this mine. You know, in Bemba, there's a Tukufirira Musenga.
Yeah.
There's no difference.
If I can't have it, no one else should have it.
Yes, rather a foreign. So let us begin to say to ourselves, one day I should be coming to you, Ambassador, you own Mopani. I've got 4 children who are graduates in engineering,
Yeah.
in mining engineering. Can you please employ them? It's easier for me to deal with you than to deal with Mr. Smith.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
True.
it is.
True. So when I publish that letter, there's somewhere a line which says, whatever you can do, please save DBZ. Honorable Noel Nkhoma, that would be my request. Whatever you can do, try to save that institution. Whatever troubles it has, whatever past it has, I think we should give it a clean slate and let it, because we need engines of growth. And no one is coming to save us. People believe someone else is coming to save us. No one is coming unless we do it ourselves.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And you know how passionate I am about DBZ. It's unfortunate that it had to end up in where it is now. But I had a long discussion a few days ago with the Governor, Bank of Zambia, Dr. Kalyalia, and I could tell from our conversation that Dr. Kalyalia and his team want to rebirth the Development Bank of Zambia, which will save the aspirations of the Zambian people.
Okay.
And he personally shared with me some of his frustrations to try and more or less expedite the recreation of the Development Bank of Zambia.
We can
But
learn
I'm
from
sure-
the mistakes of the past.
Yes, yes.
Use the mistakes of the past to hone a better outfit at the
Absolutely.
end.
So I know that equally that is a position that is shared by the Minister of Finance. He pronounced himself on that very strongly, Dr. Musakutwani, to the extent that he wants a much stronger, highly with strong governance structures of a DBZ that will save our time.
Noel Nkhoma, I wish you well to your travel to Nchwala ceremony. I hope to join you. You know, this ceremony of yours is some joke, but who will come? Who come to support you? We have no choice. But when you are back, I want us to come and discuss the economy.
Please,
and I think for me it requires a lot of attention.
I'm
What
at
can be
your call,
done
Ambassador.
and what is being done and what we can do better. So travel safely, and thank you for according us the opportunity to be with us.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you for having me on this very important platform. And I look forward to further interactions with you.
Thank you very much. Dear viewers, we're privileged to have a banker, a professional, a financial consultant, now a politician. He sat on many, many corporate bodies as board chair and board member. And he's given us, I think, an insight through what this country has gone through from an economic perspective through his lenses. So, Noel Nkhoma, we thank you for coming. And with those few words, a good day. Until we have another guest, shalom, shalom.